Okay, this exercise we're going to do is understanding how we can generate a very bespoke shading device. Bespoke in a way that it's designed to work in a very particular time. So the time we're going to take for this shading device to work is your birthday. So my birthday is 20th of March, and we're going to use that as a basis to design a very particular shading device quickly. Step one I'm going to do is I'm just going to load up a climate data. Up here where it says climate, no data file at the moment, I'm just going to click on that and click load weather file. That loads in all the weather files that are currently within Ecotect. I'm going to use something that's very close to where I was born, which is Ireland, but there are no Irish ones here, so I'm going to take London as a default. It's not too different. I press yes to all of those. Now I have in the middle of my screen a 1 by 1 meter square, which I'm going to use as the basis for this exercise. Basically what we're doing is we're going to make a relationship between this 1 meter squared and the sun. So having chosen a climate, I'm now going to turn on the sun. To turn on the sun, this little logo here, which has a sun on it, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click daily sun path. And when I click daily sun path, it now shows me the path of the sun on which day. Well, on 1st of April, and the sun is at the position of 12 o'clock for the latitude of London. Now I can rotate around by right-clicking and see the sun path. But as I said, my birthday is on 20th of March, so I'm going to actually put this to 20th of March. 20th of March. So that's the path of the sun on that day, which is my birthday, for which we're designing the shading device for. The sequence of making this shading device is pretty easy. We're just going to use one command, and I'll show you what that is. We start by selecting the base object, which is, just click on it, it goes black, and then we're going to go calculate, shading and shadows, project selected objects and extrude towards sun. So one more time, it's calculate, shading shadows, project selected objects, extrude towards sun. Now what this command does is it takes the base shape and it projects him back on a course that is parallel to the position of the sun. And the position of the sun is a function of what day it is and also what time it is on that day. So we're going to pick 3 different times and we're going to project this base object in 3 different ways. So the first time I'm going to pick is 10 a.m. Type 10 a.m., 10 a.m. on the 20th of March. And with my base object selected, I'm going to do, as I said, calculate, shading and shadows, project select objects, extrude towards sun. I click that, it now projects that object back up towards the sun. And if I pan around with my right click, I can see that relationship. Also, if I go to the visualize command, which is here, and I'm going to click this button here, which is fit grid to objects, I will again see the base object extruded back towards the position of the sun. So I'm going to retrace this base object back at the point to which I extruded it, and I'm going to use this tool, which is a plane tool on the left hand side. Click on that, and then Ecotect has snaps which will show you P is the end point of a line, so it says P there, and I click on that, and I'm going to click this 3 times, 1, 2, 3, sorry, 4 times, start on the next 3 points, and then to close a shape like this in Ecotect you actually press escape rather than clicking on the 4th point again. So having done that, that then gives me back in visualize the same point again in space, but this time traced over. Now I'm just going to apply that same methodology a second and a third time by changing my time. So it was 10 o'clock the first time, now let's do 1 o'clock. That moves the position of the sun. And again I'm going to do the same sequence of commands, which is calculate, shading shadows, project selected objects, extrude towards the sun. And again in visualize I see that extrusion as a red. And then I'm going to again use this plane tool to go click, 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 click and escape to close the shape. And one more time I'm going to do a third time, which is at 1600. When I do it at 1600 again I'm going to extrude it, which is project selected objects, extrude towards sun. and then once more trace that through. 1, 2, 3, 4, click. Now I have a situation where in space I have 3 planes which I have projected from the base plane, which was the 1 meter squared I started off with, and it's been projected in relation to the sun that I can see there. Now I'm going to delete that extrusion by just clicking on it and deleting it. I'm still left with the 3 places where it had been, having traced it through. I'm now just going to draw one more line which is between those 3 planes. Again, using the plane tool, I'm going to click here to, in a way, create a bit of a shading device from those 3 points. Now you know in Ecotech that the shape is okay if it, having drawn it, it is black. If you draw it and it's red, for instance, if I were to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, click, it becomes a red shape when Ecotech can't deal with this for the reason that it's not a coplanar shape. That means the 4 points of the shape are not in the same plane. So I'm going to delete that guy. I'm left with the guy I did first off. Now what that looks like in space is a rather arbitrary shape, but one which has a very particular quality. And the very particular quality is that it is derived from a relationship between the sun in the sky on a particular day at a particular time and a base shape. What that means is that when I see how this performs in terms of its shading, it will meet a certain performance requirement. So let's turn on the shadows. If I click here again on the sun here, which is on the right under shadow settings, and I go display shadows, and I turn the time to, let's say, 9 AM, which is an hour before my first set was projected. If I then, in the shading shadow settings, if I scroll to the bottom, one of the things I'll see is animate shadows. I'm going to animate them quite slowly, and I'm going to press hourly. And this is going to basically run as a dynamic sequence the path of the sun and show us where the shadow follows through that path. So I'm going to click hourly and we'll see what happens. So the sun rises, and then it gets to 10 o'clock, and of course at 10 o'clock it casts a shadow exactly over my square because I extruded the square back to that position of the sun. Do it again slightly more slowly. And for all other hours that this works, again it will always work because the shape was derived from the relationship of the path of the sun through the sky and the base object. So this shading device that I've designed is absolutely optimized for those particular requirements which I set out in the first place, which, as I said, was I want to cast a shadow on my birthday between those 2 hours. Now, of course, it won't work on anybody else's birthday, because on a different day, if I stop this and I change the day, let's say 20th of April, and again I turn on the shadows, which are at the top here, display shadows, and I again play that animation through, this time a wee bit faster. Now with the sun in a different location in the sky, the relationship has altered and therefore the shadow cast will be different. And in this instance, my very optimized shade fails completely by missing entirely the piece of land I'm trying to shadow. So we can be very specific with our kind of shading devices and designing them in this way.